My name is Molly, and I'm a 38-year-old office worker. Today is my youngest brother Ryan's wedding. When I arrived at the reception hall and looked at the seating chart handed to me by the staff, I saw that my seat was the farthest from the main table, near the entrance door. To top it off, while the other tables had 5 people each, for some reason, I was the only one at my table. The title next to my name on the seating chart read, "Lonely Sister Who Graduated from a Bottom-Tier High School," which left me speechless. Other attendees who received the seating chart were glancing at me in surprise, with most of them widening their eyes. But to be honest, I wasn't that shocked. Well, knowing that bride, this isn't too surprising. I muttered as I sat down, recalling the first time I met the bride, Amy. It was about 6 months ago when I first met Amy, the bride and today's star. Ryan, who lived in a different apartment in the same complex, sent me a message, looking a bit embarrassed.
Can you make some time on your next day off? There's someone I want you to meet.
I'm free, but are you sure you're okay, Ryan? I couldn't help but ask. Because Ryan's job is in the NICU, which means he's a doctor in the neonatal intensive care unit. He treats babies born prematurely, babies born small, babies needing help beyond spontaneous breathing, and babies born with illnesses. The NICU is a place where lives are saved 24/7, 365 days a year. So even if he has a scheduled day off, it's common for him to cancel it if there's an emergency or if the condition of a baby he's caring for suddenly changes. Most family members, close friends, and healthcare professionals understand this situation. However, some of Ryan's past girlfriends would get angry every time he was called to the hospital, saying things like, "You don't treat me special," or the classic, "What's more important, your job or me?" This often led to the relationship falling apart. So Ryan usually ends up breaking up with them. Even though he's my real brother, he's a high-spec guy, tall, high income, and reasonably handsome. It's not uncommon for women who regret losing him to contact me day and night, asking me to tell Ryan to reconsider, or even showing up at my workplace.
Ah, sure, I've caused you trouble in the past, but I think this time it'll be fine. She's a really wonderful woman.
Well, I'll trust your judgment this time, Ryan. So, where should we meet? We decided to meet at the tea lounge of a hotel near the next station the following weekend. On that rainy day, I finished some errands and headed to the hotel lounge. It wasn't raining heavily when I got off the train, so I walked to the hotel, but it started pouring halfway there, and by the time I reached the entrance, my shoulders and skirt hem were wet. I still have some time, so maybe I'll freshen up in the restroom. I thought as I headed to the restroom and touched up my makeup in an empty powder room. Since it was the weekend, the restroom was fairly crowded with women who seemed to be there for arranged marriage meetings or wedding receptions. I heard a woman who was touching up her makeup behind me talking to a friend she had apparently run into. I wasn't eavesdropping, but their voices were so loud that they drowned out the softly playing classical music, and it was impossible not to hear every word of their conversation. It seemed they were friends who had graduated from a school where students automatically advanced to the next grade, one of whom had married a doctor she met at a mixer and was now enjoying her life as a high-profile wife.
But it was tough at first. He said he wanted to be a doctor, inspired by TV series about rural healthcare, and I almost ended up in the middle of nowhere.
No way, that's like fraud. So what did you do?
What else could I do? I told him, "If you take me to such a place, I'll leave you, and you'll have to pay a hefty alimony." That made his parents turn pale. They put their house up as collateral for his tuition loans to make him a doctor? No way they'd allow that.
I see. But my boyfriend might have that risk too. He's currently working in the NICU, so we can hardly go on dates.
Hearing that, my ears perked up. There are many NICU doctors in the world. And surely, there are single NICU doctors too. But how many single NICU doctors are meeting their girlfriend at this hotel today? So, does that mean the woman talking loudly behind me is Ryan's girlfriend? Pretending to take my time with my makeup, I continued listening to their conversation. Apparently, this woman, who was likely Ryan's girlfriend, had another boyfriend. This other guy was incredibly handsome but completely broke. Essentially a freeloader. He was the perfect accessory for clubs and cafes, drawing envious looks from other women, but she didn't have the time or money to support him forever. So she was planning to cut ties with the super handsome guy and settle down with a high-spec doctor boyfriend. Seriously.
Does that mean you're meeting him here today?
Exactly. That's why I wore this girly dress. Those science guys are suckers for the typical princess type.
Seeing them leave, I glanced at them in the mirror. One had soft, curly hair and wore a cute lace dress. So I'll be having lunch with her. I felt a heavy sense of dread, but there was no avoiding it. 5 minutes later, while I was drinking coffee in the designated lounge, Ryan arrived with a woman. Smiling sweetly behind Ryan is indeed the woman in the cute lace dress from earlier. Even though I was prepared for this, I still felt a bit disheartened inside. But unaware of my feelings, Ryan introduced her as his girlfriend, Amy.
Nice to meet you. Ryan always brags about you, so I'm happy to finally meet you.
Amy greeted me, but all I could muster was a strained smile.
Actually, I've made a reservation at the French restaurant upstairs. I thought we could have lunch and chat.
Oh, French cuisine? That's unusual.
Yeah, but when I consulted Amy about today, she said I think French cuisine would be better for Molly.
Amy, standing next to Ryan and smiling, casually said to me,
I thought Italian or Chinese might be too heavy for someone your age.
"Oh, so now women in their late 30s can't handle their favorite food? Interesting." But I thought it would be embarrassing to lose my cool, so I smiled and let it slide as we headed to the restaurant. When we were shown to the private room Amy had reserved, Ryan started to explain how they met in more detail. According to him, they met at a mixer event where all the men were young doctors. Oh, all the men were doctors? So what kind of women were there? Before Ryan could answer, Amy, with a smug look, replied,
Of course, only ladies from good families were there. Embarrassingly, all of us, including myself, graduated from prestigious women's colleges and then focused on preparing to be a bride.
"I've never seen anyone call themselves a lady from a good family in my 38 years. She's a rare character." As I listened quietly to Amy's bragging, the food was served. A chef's choice lunch course featuring sole moiniere and salmon tartare. The plump, fatty fish looked delicious.
The sole moiniere looks great. When we were students, Molly used to cook the fish our brother caught.
Ryan, who prefers fish over meat, seemed happy as he ate. I smiled at Amy and said, "But once you marry Amy, she can prepare fish for you anytime. After all, she's prepared for everything from American to Asian cuisine, right, Amy?" Amy's eyebrow twitched nervously at my comment. I bet this Amy rarely cooks. Her nails were perfectly manicured, which wouldn't withstand cooking regularly. Moreover, they're perfectly arranged, with not a single piece missing. While it's possible she had them done just for today, women can often tell these things about each other. No matter how much she claims to be domestic, it doesn't seem convincing.
Yes, of course. If it's Ryan's favorite, I'll put all my effort into cooking it.
Amy answered as if it were obvious. Hearing this, Ryan was innocently delighted. After that, while Ryan was carefree, the subtle rivalry between Amy and me continued under the surface. Shortly after that lunch, Ryan proposed to Amy. Then came the busy days of meeting each other's families and searching for a wedding venue. At the family meeting, my other brothers, James and Luke, who are twins, also attended. James and Luke, 2 years younger than me, are both still single but quite popular. They live not far from the apartment complex where Ryan and I live, but we're all usually busy with work and don't get to meet often. So, after the meeting, I asked them to stop by my apartment. James and Luke sat heavily on the living room sofa, looking exasperated, and began sharing their impressions of Amy's family.
That was a no-go. Ryan really has no eye for people.
Totally. And it's beyond a joke.
Do you think so too? Actually, before today, we met once and something like this happened. I told him everything about the incident at the hotel. I just had a bad feeling, but I thought maybe it was just my mother-in-law syndrome talking. James and Luke both chimed in.
Mother-in-law syndrome is when you go out of your way to find faults, right? That's not it. Amy's flaws are just too obvious.
Yeah. Today, when she told us, if I'd known your brothers were this great, I might have broken up with Ryan, it gave me goosebumps.
They also shared what Amy said while I was talking to her parents.
Well, Ryan's apartment is in the same complex as his sister's, right? No offense, but even though she raised you, she's still single. If she stays close by, I'm worried she'll end up needing care from us in the near future.
It's true our parents died in a tragic accident long ago, and I took on the role of a parent, but I've never expected gratitude or financial support. So hearing about care in old age was surprising, but what shocked them more was Amy's obsession with money. During their conversation, she sized up their watch brands and cars, and when they told her, her eyes practically turned into dollar signs. All we could do was sigh. James and Luke also had issues with Amy's parents. While they seemed like decent people when I talked to them, James and Luke felt they were not good people, but not bad people. Amy's parents didn't scold her for talking about money all the time. They just smiled. Amy bragged about how many high-end jewelry pieces and trips to see the aurora her boyfriends gave her, and her parents seemed proud of her. They pointed out that even in such moments, Amy's parents had an air of, "Isn't our daughter amazing for making men fall for her?" And they were fed up with it.
It's like parent, like child.
Our consensus was that breaking off the engagement was the only option, but Ryan was still infatuated with Amy. Ryan's an adult, and even if we think his choice is questionable, we shouldn't outright oppose him.
True. If what Molly heard about the freeloader boyfriend is true, there might still be room for discussion.
No, I don't think so. People like her are good at maneuvering, and she's probably already cut ties with him.
We looked at each other and sighed in frustration and helplessness. Amy took the lead in planning the wedding, and finally, the big day arrived. All we could do now was hope for Ryan's happiness. Just when we were thinking that, Amy's declaration of war came in the form of the seating chart title and placing me alone at the least important seat. As I glanced at James and Luke in the groom's family seats, both of them were red-faced with anger. We couldn't cause a scene now. So I quickly messaged them. Please don't make a fuss until the reception is over. They reluctantly nodded in acknowledgement. I felt relieved. The lights dimmed, and to the cue from the MC, Ryan and Amy entered the room to the music. Amy walked past me, so it seemed Ryan didn't see me. But when Amy and I made eye contact, she had a smug look on her face that matched a humph sound perfectly as she passed by. The wedding reception proceeded with the introductions, toasts, and cake cutting without a hitch. When the meal started, the atmosphere was lively and cheerful. I, however, sat silently, unable to talk to anyone at other tables. I had no choice but to quietly focus on my meal. After the speeches, as Ryan and Amy left for a costume change, Ryan finally noticed me sitting alone at the far end. He frowned and gave Amy a sharp look. I quickly waved him off to leave. Let's not make a scene now that we're halfway through, I thought, sweating nervously. A staff member brought me another glass of champagne. In the past, family members would go around pouring drinks, but now it's mainly done by staff. For me right now, it's a relief not to have to go around greeting people and facing a barrage of questions about the title on the seating chart and how I've been treated. However, I couldn't ignore greeting the guests of honor and those who gave the toasts. With that thought, I reluctantly stood up and headed to the guest of honor's table. The guest of honor on Ryan's side was Charles, a respected physician and a senior graduate from the same university as Ryan. Recently, he was featured in a popular TV documentary, increasing his public recognition. After his speech, not only Ryan's medical colleagues, but also guests from Amy's side were eager to take photos with him. I approached Charles to thank him and pour him a beer when Ryan and Amy returned from their costume change and started making rounds, arriving at the adjacent table for the bride's guests of honor. Noticing them, Charles urged me to sit in his wife's seat and, speaking loudly enough for the neighboring table to hear, had the staff fill a glass to the brim with beer.
It's been 5 years already. Time flies. You were a great help back then, and I've been meaning to thank you today.
This caught the attention of Amy's father, who asked Charles.
Do you know the groom's sister?
Charles explained to him.
Yes, Molly here is a top employee at a construction company renowned for building medical facilities. She's a tremendous ally when my former students' hospitals need rebuilding.
Before Amy's father could respond, Amy interjected angrily.
That's impossible. She's just a high school graduate working as a clerk.
Amy pointed at me and declared. The room fell completely silent in the face of her outburst, with only the background music audible. Everyone present was watching us with bated breath. But Amy, oblivious to the tension, laughed loudly.
Ryan and his brothers are all elites, but this woman is at the bottom. I couldn't stand the thought of her acting superior just because she's the sister. I had to put her in her place.
Before Amy could finish her laugh, Charles stood up and, looking straight at Amy, asked,
Put her in her place? So you labeled her as lonely sister who graduated from a bottom-tier high school on the seating chart and placed her at the farthest table alone?
His calm yet resonant voice was filled with anger. Hearing Charles, Ryan turned sharply to Amy and demanded in a stern voice.
Is what Charles said true? Did you do this to my sister?
Amy froze momentarily, stunned by Ryan's uncharacteristically harsh tone and expression, then quickly retorted.
So what if it's true? You two are trying to polish her image, but it's all a sham.
Ryan's face grew even sterner as he yelled at Amy.
Who are you calling a bottom-tier high school graduate? My sister graduated from a university ranked higher than mine. You idiot.
While the ranking might be debatable, I am indeed a university graduate. However, Amy's claim of me being a high school graduate clerk was not a complete fabrication. Our parents, who had worked as a head chef and a waitress at a classic restaurant, tragically passed away in an accident shortly after opening their own restaurant when I started university. To make matters worse, our savings were nearly depleted because our parents had used them for startup funds, and due to missing payments after switching their pension plan, my younger brothers couldn't receive their survivor benefits. The insurance payout from the other party in the accident had to be used to cover the closure of the newly opened store and loan repayments, leaving my siblings and me in immediate financial distress. I dropped out of college to support my siblings by working as a clerk at a local construction company. Over the next 7 years, James and Luke managed to graduate from college through scholarships and part-time jobs. Upon receiving their first salaries, they handed all of them to me, telling me to pursue my dreams while they took over the family's financial responsibilities from then on. So, I studied hard with Ryan and transferred to a technical institute when he started university. I considered going back to university, but taking my age and the gap in my education into account, I decided to gain specialized skills at a technical institute instead. Thanks to the guidance of colleagues and superiors at the construction company, I managed to graduate. In my case, because I wanted to transfer to a department that didn't depend on my high school major, there were few technical colleges that would accept me. After entering institute, I lived apart from my brothers, surrounded by classmates about 5 years younger than me. I pushed myself to catch up on math and physics, cutting down on sleep and studying hard. As a result, I achieved top-class grades and, with encouragement from those around me, decided to transfer to a university to gain more advanced knowledge and skills. With continued effort, I was able to join the construction company where I now work. Ryan, now with a furious expression, along with James and Luke, who had come over, took turns explaining this to Amy.
But Ryan told me my sister graduated high school and worked as a clerk to support us.
I told you the rest, didn't I? You were probably distracted by that freeloader boyfriend of yours.
Amy was doubly shocked. We were also surprised that Ryan knew about the freeloader. It turned out that shortly after he started dating Amy, another woman from the same mixer had sent him a tip-off email.
At that time, I thought the woman was just dissing Amy to promote herself, and I figured everyone has some dirt at our age, so I ignored it.
But now, knowing the whole story, everything had changed.
I can't understand you at all. You're delusional. There's no way I can live with someone like you as my wife. I can't even see you as a fellow human being anymore. You're on the same level as a cockroach.
Ryan's words cut through Amy. The guests who witnessed the exchange also started mocking her, saying things like, "Unbelievable," and "How shameless can you be?"
I'm very displeased to be associated with such shameless people. I'm leaving.
The president, the guest of honor on Amy's side, stood up and said so, and following his lead, the guests began to leave one by one.
Such disgraceful parenting. How shameful.
Some muttered loudly as they left, causing Amy's family to turn pale. After that, we thanked the staff for managing the chaotic situation, and my siblings and I, along with the guests on the groom's side, left. Encouraged by Charles and others, Ryan went on to drink with friends and colleagues until morning at the now canceled second reception venue. Amy's side tried to contact Ryan and us siblings with numerous calls and messages, but we ignored them on the advice of James's friend, who had become Ryan's impromptu lawyer at the wedding. After discussions, it was decided that Amy's side would cover all the wedding and honeymoon costs, and the engagement was broken off without any compensation from either side.
The damage was minimal, and now I can forget it ever happened.
Ryan said. However, according to the lawyer, Amy's side faced severe consequences. Her father, who angered the president, made a major mistake in his attempt to make amends and was transferred to a remote area. Amy, who had bragged about being a winner, couldn't stand the gossip and followed her father with her mother to his new location. As for me, I became busier than ever, taking on a hospital reconstruction project brought to me by Charles. Work will be my partner for now, but I'm looking forward to it.